afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to RobMotive. It is time to get the light bar and the wind deflector installed on the new roof rack on the Tacoma. Now, I've got everything laid out. The light bar does fit. I believe it's 42 inches. This stuff came from Cali Raised, by the way. One thing I do want to note to Cali Raised, if you look at this connector, and it's kind of hard to see in this light, I don't know if it'll pick it up or not, but there is a nick in the ground wire, I don't know if it matters, where you can actually see the wire underneath. So always inspect your stuff before you use it. I will cover that up with probably some kind of shrink tape or something, we'll see. But first things first, up on the top, a little tip for you. If you put in, and you should have, these little slide nuts, I'll call them, that you're going to bolt the wind deflector down to, go ahead and line them up with the holes on the wind deflector before you get working on the light bar, just to make sure they're in the right positions. One thing I do want to note, there should be a note or something in the directions that say, hey, if you're going to put these in, either cover them or go ahead and do everything installed at the same time, because if you leave them exposed, you can see they've rusted in the rain. So they weren't frozen to the bar, but nonetheless, I'm concerned that the threads could be damaged because they got wet. So it'd be nice to have known that. You know, I would have done the whole install, or at least put bolts in there to protect the threads. Anyway, next up, we're going to go ahead, and I'm actually going to mount the holders, the brackets for the light bar before I put the light bar up. I think that would be easier to do than trying to finagle all of that and put the light bar on. So we're going to do that next. Now, I got the kit from Cali Raised, and what it includes are some little slide nuts, again I'll call them, specifically for this. And the reason is it makes it a lot easier to install, and I'm talking about these little things right here. They fit in those channels and then slide, and then you can bolt the bracket they provide onto them and then go ahead and mount it onto the light bar. A much easier way to do it, I think, than trying to somehow finagle these in to the existing metal piece that's up there now. I'm not even sure how you would hold it down with these. I don't see any way to put it in there. So I would highly recommend going for this little kit. Now, the way they work, these little nuts go in the channel, and then you screw the bracket into them, and then don't tighten it down, because you're going to want to slide it so that you can put these on the edge of the light bar. And of course, the hardware for the light bar is over here. It's going to be these silver pieces that'll mount the light bar onto the brackets. We've got the little slide bolt, or nut, I'm calling it, and it should ideally just kind of slide in there. Probably a two-hand job, I'm sure, but you get the idea. It's just going to slide in the slot here, and that's what we're going to, yeah, just like that. Pretty simple. That's what we're going to fasten down the bracket to. So we've got this side in. I'm going to go grab the bracket. We're going to get that on, and then I'll do the other side as well. Okay, one little quick note, because nobody seems to cover this. The orientation of these brackets, you want the hump, the part that sticks out, to be facing the rear, as opposed to this way, where it's facing the front. Might be a simple little detail, but I could see putting this bracket on backwards and then having to screw around and do it all over again. So it should go this way with the little tongue here, by the way, on the outside, or facing the outside of the truck. Once you have it on, it should look like that. And of course, the light bar is going to fasten here. Okay, there you go. That mounts the light bar. I've left everything loose because now I'm going to hold the deflector up there and make sure that it's centered the way that I want it, and then we'll come back on, tighten everything down. Now, one note I want to give you, make sure that you pay attention to where the wiring is, depending on which way you're going to run it. Mine's going to go down the driver's side, so that's where I have the wiring. Again, last thing you want to do is get this thing on and then have to take it off because you put the wire on the wrong side. All right, got the light bar mounted up there. Of course, the trick now is to kind of eye how the light bar is pointing. I may tilt it up just a hair more, or actually maybe not. It's kind of hard to tell until you have it done and you can turn it on and see where it's hitting. But the light bar itself, a little tip for you, before you angle the light bar, make sure you have the brackets tightened down, because when you tighten them down, they kind of tilt the light bar down a little bit because they're going up flush against this bar. That's why mine's a little bit pointed down. They just go in with these Allen head or Torx bit screws. Pretty simple to do. So next up, we've got to get the wind deflector on. And by the way, the distance from here to here, right at the edge of the bracket, is 2 3/4 inches, just a hair over 2 3/4 inches. So if you shoot for that, you should be pretty equidistant for the gap in the wind deflector. It is done. I have the wind deflector on, you guys can see. Let's take a closer look, and a couple of things, a couple of tips I'll give you here. One, the very center, let's see, the one right there, nuts. You probably should, or what I had to do, I actually had this side on and that side on. I had to take this side off, and then the second one's in there. I would go ahead and put one on that side and then line up the brackets underneath, the little slip bolts, whatever you want to call them, nuts, slide nuts, I guess I've been calling them. Because when I got done, the holes weren't lined up. I couldn't even see them. So I had to kind of lift this up, and there is some play in it, so you can lift it up and then get the little slot nuts aligned. And again, very important that you do that all the way across. All the other ones, from what I did earlier in the video, they were all aligned good enough so that I could just slightly adjust them with a screwdriver. Very simple, because of course they slide freely in there. But make sure you get those on before you do any of the other ones. Another thing I noticed, just to point out, the adjustment, of course, the screws that hold the light bar on, they're actually behind this flange here, if you will, or this part that sticks out of the wind deflector. So there's no way you're going to be able to loosen this without taking the wind deflector off, which is kind of a bear to get on. It's too bad this part doesn't bend down just a little more. All it needs is about maybe a 1/2 inch or so bent down or angled, and they could easily do that. And then you would have access to the adjustment for the light bar. I might be able to do it by hand anyway. I mean, usually there's some give in those, but it would make it a little easier. As far as the wiring goes, that, of course, will be another video. Otherwise, this will be 3 hours long. But what I'm going to do is either run it on the inside of the window here, or preferably right in this channel here, down and then into the engine bay where I'll connect the light up. Now, obviously, the wiring they give you, and this is too bad that the plug, which just fell there, isn't long enough to reach down into the engine bay. No matter how you do it up there, that plug is not going to reach into the engine bay, so it's going to be up there somewhere. Now, I have some other wiring. Hopefully it's long enough. If not, I'll need to do something else. But some other wiring that I'm going to use to run it on down in. Actually, this is the stock wiring that came with it. So hopefully this is enough and I won't have to splice with my other wiring. We shall see. I need to plug it in and find out, I guess. And then, of course, I'll connect it to my Switch Pro inside. Anyway, that is how you put the wind deflector and the light bar on the Prinsu roof rack. It's not that difficult, really, just a little tedious with those 2 bolts that I mentioned. Leave a comment. If you've done it, you have a better way. I'd be very curious to know. Also, real quick, I do have 2 additional channels. Mod Driven, all about the Mercedes-Benz at the moment, mods and things on that. And RobMotive JT, all about the Jeep Gladiator. Check them out, and if you're interested, why not subscribe? And while you're at it, smash the subscribe button here too. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there. Bye.